Okay, welcome back. We're on page 276, going through the bullet list of the cost estimating tasks for this case study. So we just finished talking about training. If you're gonna hire somebody to come in or do some training, that's a direct cost. But the people who normally would be doing their job are now in training. That's an indirect cost. In this particular project, they decided to do a 20% reserve because it was kind of the application of a new technology, and they weren't absolutely positively sure everything was going to work exactly right. And then they automated the estimate so they could easily make changes to it. That kind of makes sense. Okay. So here's this figure. So here's their WBSs. And, for project manager, he's going to spend 960 hours, and that's his unit cost. And so we total these things up. So this is a pretty good way of coming up with a cost estimate for this Surveyor Pro project. Okay, cool. In this case, it's not always the unit cost is hours, but it could be, like this one, the licensed software, that's not hours, that's actually number of units. I have 100 of the handheld units. I would have made that a little bit more clear, but that's beside the point. Anyway, so whatever the unit is, what are the cost subtotals, what are the WBSs, and how much money you're spending on each one of these things. Not surprising, the software part is the most expensive part because that's where you're going to have all your labor. I'm going to be spending a heck of a lot of time developing the software. Okay, so it's not surprising that it goes here. Okay, now how do you determine the cost of, how do you determine that line right there? They didn't show units, so they didn't show how many hours. They basically just said it's going to cost $594,000. How'd they do that? Well, there are several techniques. And if you want to take the CIS class 3365, the system, no, what is that one? Yeah, system analysis and design class. They go into an awful lot of details on how you can come up with cost estimates using the software as a thing. There's lots of techniques, and there's some dumb ones. There's one called KLOCs, which is 1,000 lines of code, KLOC. The other one is this thing called function points. And the function points would be difficult to describe, but just bear with me. Function point is a level of complexity. You could go through the specifications for a piece of software and count up these function points. I'm not even going to bother to describe what they are, but you can count them up. And then using this parametric approach, remember that? We can throw this into a formula. It's going to tell me how many hours and what the costs are. Okay, cool. So, I am going to skip the boring details of this and go directly to the next figure. So here's basically, they've kind of sort of figured what these function points are. And trust me, don't go into detail. There's going to be some inputs and some interfaces and some outputs and some queries. And so they come up with the quantity, basically how tough it is, and then these function points, and then you blah 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 blah, and ding, you come up with $567,000. Okay, cool. So labor, a cost estimate, and then the function point estimate. I know it's a little weird. Okay, again, I'm not trying to teach you how to be an estimator for software projects. This is not really what this is about. So assuming that you had an estimator on staff, this would be what they would be doing. Okay. Moving along. On page 281, they talk about determining the budget. Remember the steps we're going through? So this is basically allocating your cost estimate for individual resources. That's basically what it is. So I've got the money, and now I need to put the money in the bank, so to speak, to pay the labor, to pay this, to pay that, or whatever. So let's look at their WBS chart. And this is a chart. This is their high-level WBSs, right? Okay, versus, in this case, it's months. So here's all the months. So if I was to be asking my parent organization for money on a monthly basis, I'd be asking them for $20,000 the first month and $87,000, and right? Even if I didn't do that, even if they gave me all the money up front, I would still do this in order to figure out whether or not I'm blowing my budget. If I don't have, if I can't plot the execution of funds over time in a line, if I can't do that, then I can't tell whether I'm blowing the budget or not. I have to be able to tell if I'm burning through the cash faster than I'm supposed to. So this is the supposed to. Okay. So this is how you allocate the budget. The WES cost per month. Okay. The next one is the controlling. Remember, controlling process group goes throughout the entire process. It doesn't fit in any one piece. It's goes all the way across. Okay. So on page 282, they talk about monitoring the costs using a baseline. Gee, we've heard that before, huh? And the baseline is just like we just talked about. I need to have, here's how much I think it's going to cost per month, and I'm burning through it faster or I'm burning through it slower, whatever. Okay. So you need to be able to produce these updated cost forecasts for every approved change request. Every single time someone comes in and says, well, I think we need to do this, this, and this. And you need to come back and say, okay, I will approve this, provided that you give me an extra $64,000 to do it. It's got to be, quid pro quo. It's got to be, I want this change. Okay, it's going to cost you. You can't ever say, sure, I'll do it, without asking for more money or more time, because that will change their appetite. If you did that once, they'll have an insatiable appetite. Well, it didn't cost me anything last time. Okay, now I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this. No, you're going to have to show them every single time that these things are going to affect both the time schedule and the cost. Okay. So, Microsoft Project can run these cost reports for you. They can actually do this. If you put in the actual task, associated with a task, you put in all of the cost information, it can keep track of it all. You can put in actual cost and it'll do the little chart for you. Kind of cool. On page 282, they finally start talking about this term that they've been kind of batting around from the beginning. It first appeared in the little case study at the beginning. It's called Earned Value Management. There's even an acronym, EVM. And so it's basically a performance measurement technique that includes, the scope, the time, and the cost data. Okay, cool. So I'm going to switch to this little thing here that talks about these key terms. And so, let's just go through it. All right. So let me just go through some of the terms here. Maybe not in the exact order they show up here, because we're going to switch back and forth between different graphics. So let's say the planned cost. The planned value. The planned value is how much money. So for week one, that column down at the bottom had $10,000 in it. That's how much I plan to spend. That's my budget spending for the month. Cool. The actual cost is my direct and indirect cost. Now, indirect cost might be a little complex, and I would kind of urge you to not throw in like the utility bill. That's not what they mean. Although that is the classic definition and example of indirect costs, that's not what they're talking about here. They're talking about like lost productivity from moving employees and that kind of stuff. Okay. Earned value. Earned value is the value of the work that's been done, and it's calculated by basically it's a rate of performance, the ratio of completed versus planned. In other words, how much did I complete versus how much did I expect to complete? Okay. Cost variance, that's the difference between my earned value and my actual cost. So here, I planned on spending $10,000. It actually cost me $10,000. I only got $5,000 worth of effort out of it. So my cost variance was huge. My cost variance was $10,000 difference. Okay, cool. And the schedule variance, basically, you can probably figure that out. That's how much it makes the difference in the schedule. Basically, this is kind of weird, so just bear with me. The schedule variance isn't days. It's still money, okay? So schedule variance is the earned value minus the planned value. Earned value minus the planned value. And then they have cost performance index, which is the ratio of earned value to actual value. And then my performance index, which is the earned value to planned value. All right, so I know there's a formulas. Let me just pop up the formulas here. So here's the formulas for all these things: the earned value, and the cost, and the schedule, and all these things. Okay. They throw in some extra terms here, so let's talk about those. So the estimated time to complete, this is actually good. So I take how long I expected it to do, and then divide that by the schedule performance index, which is basically it's trend analysis. Okay, I expect it to take 10 months to do, but at month 5, I'm over by 20% on my schedule. Okay, so you just prorate that out. If I'm over at 20% in week 5, when I get to week 10, I'm probably going to be over by either 20 or 40, depending on how you calculate that. So it's just a matter of extrapolating the line. I'm off by this much, and therefore that's how far it's going to go. Again, this is not rocket surgery. It's kind of sort of makes sense. They just use some fancy terms to do this stuff. So, skipping the fancy terms, let's just go to the chart. So here's a good example of an earned value chart. All right, and I'm not going to get into tons of details, but months versus costs. So I want to know what my burn rate. I would have called this the burn rate chart. Whenever I did these kind of projects, I was always pestering my folks. I said, show me your burn rate on how fast you're going through your money. Okay, so in some scenarios, it's a perfect straight line. Okay, not always. And the fact that this one kind of sort of is, it's a little weird. But anyway, I anticipated this thing only taking, it looks like, 11 and a half months. So anyway, bottom line is my actual my actual cost is greater than my estimate, and my earned value, because of that, my earned value is actually less. I'm actually producing less than what I anticipated I'd be producing. So this is a worry. If I look at this chart, and I'd say, first of all, I can tell two things. I can tell that if I extrapolate this line, that it's going to be a overrun of about a month on this scale, and about, I don't know, what is that, about $24,000? So using this little chart, I can kind of sort of tell what that point is right there. And that point, the estimate at completion, is going to tell me how long it's going to take and how much money I'm going to go through. So this is just extrapolating the existing data. Once you get data going, you plot out, if things continue, here's what it's going to cost me in both time and money. Okay, the earned value chart. So the estimate at completion is what it's going to likely cost, and the budget at completion is the budget at completion. Budget doesn't change. Okay, budget, right? The budget doesn't change. So estimate at completion, budget managed change. So subtract those two together, and you come up with a thing. Okay, so using this technique, it helps out. Let me just say, for example, a lot of people they kind of tend to oversimplify. For example, if I came to you and said, well, we're 50% through the project, does that mean clock time? It's going to take 12 months and we're in 6 months? Or does that mean, what if the bulk of the work was done in month 2? Right? So this is a way of not oversimplifying. I'm 75% complete, or I've used 75% of the budget, or 75% of the schedule. Those statements are terrible oversimplifications and don't do justice. This tells me everything I need to know. This tells me, okay, you gave me this chart, I can tell you how much it's going to cost, and I can tell you when the project's going to end. Okay. I'll tell you what, let's stop this, and this next video will be pretty doggone short because we're almost done.